glad you got that.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad. Is that just a little tear?
Put it on the bell.
I know, that's weird.
I couldn't even read the news anymore. Like 8 straight hours of reading the news. No, 3 straight days.
That's just crazy.
You got my access through anyways. So there's only like one thing I can do between 6 and like 7. And so between 7 and 2, just
Oh my gosh.
watch everybody else get killed. You're just sitting there. Like,
I just put you to work. Find something for you.
Fortunately, we have a diagram for our 6 o'clock. That's confusing.
yes.
6 o'clock. Okay.
Not like we started meeting.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Notice of an open work session of the City Council of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, December 4th, 2018. Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. Tonight's work session is on the topic of our business licenses. We'd like to talk to you a little bit about why we have them and the process that we follow to collect, especially for businesses that might be delinquent, and then a few code updates that, as we've been looking at our processes, that we think would be advisable. So at this point, I'll turn the presentation over to the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahota.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Like Eric said, we're here today to talk about our business license process and to seek direction from you on a few proposed code amendments. I'd like to begin by explaining why we license businesses. The City of North Kansas City licensed businesses maintain the health, safety, and welfare of our community. The business license process helps ensure that new businesses are operating in compliance with local regulations such as zoning and codes, and they have the necessary liability insurance and state certifications as well as workman's compensation to conduct business safely. During the business license process, we also make sure that they are registered with any county, state, or federal agencies, that they maybe aren't aware that they need to do that process. During the business license renewal, so after they've been with us for a year, we ask them to renew their license. We make sure that they're still complying with those local requirements. As you know, businesses do different things as they go through their cycle, as well as that they still have the liability insurance and state certifications and workers' compensation. So to make sure that last year's insurance has been renewed and that they have all of the new versions of those requirements. We also establish that they have paid their county property tax and remitted any sales tax to the state. North Kansas City merchants apply our local sales tax rates, and they are responsible for remitting those monies to the state so that they can be distributed back to the local municipalities. This is an important step because it ensures that we and other local taxing jurisdiction partners, such as the North Kansas City School District, don't lose revenue that we're entitled to. It also ensures that sales taxes that are collected at the point of sale, meaning that when you buy a physical item here in North Kansas City and they apply our local sales tax, that those monies are actually being remitted to the state and then given back to us so that we can apply them to our general and transportation funds. I forgot to mention, if you guys have any questions about anything along the way, please feel free to interrupt me. If you guys have a question for clarification, please feel free to say, hey, wait, I don't understand exactly what you're saying here. So all businesses and contractors doing business in North Kansas City are required to get a business license. The business license type and location determines what type of license they are required. If a business has more than one location, each location is required to have a license. Sometimes that can be a nominal $25 fee depending on gross receipts. The city does not require a business license for those businesses that are regulated by the state of Missouri. by the Missouri revised statutes. An example of that would be a medical profession or casino. Those are licensed by the state and they don't require a local license. Couple of the handouts that we have. North Kansas City does have 3 different business licenses, and kind of here's what that breakdown looks like. Class 1 is contractor, Class 2 is fixed fees specialized, and Class 3 is fixed fees general. Currently, right now, we have 1,538 businesses that are licensed to do business in North Kansas City. And as you can see, Class 3 is the largest with 784. Those are within North Kansas City. We have 4 that are outside, and that brings our total up to 788.
What does that mean, they're outside?
So outside of North Kansas City means that maybe they are located in Kansas City or they're located in Kansas, but they do work here in Missouri. We do require them to get a business license, again, to make sure that they have the necessary state certifications, that they have the correct liability insurance, and that they have the workman's compensation to do business here in the city. So that's why we require licensing, even if you don't have a physical presence, but you're doing work here. That could be your contractor, that can be electrician, that can be anybody, again, coming to do work within North Kansas City. Overall, the vast majority of businesses comply with our business license process. But that being said, over the last couple of years, the city has had a couple of chronic issues with businesses that have not met the state or the city's requirements to do business with a valid business license in North Kansas City. And I'll tell you why that's kind of important. Businesses, when they operate without a business license, we lose the ability to become aware and monitor to make sure that they're compliant with our local building codes, our fire codes, if they have registered with the health department. Honestly, not everybody knows our processes. They may open up a restaurant and not realize that they have to register with Clay County for inspections.
Kim, does the city assume any liability in case of something that goes wrong in that business that's in default of paying their city license?
To be honest, that is a Mr. Barzee question. I'm unsure if we accept any. But really, at the end of the day, the licenses is to make sure that both our visitors, our residents, and our businesses are protected. That is one of the key reasons why we do license them.
I think generally speaking, if someone isn't compliant with one of our codes, then it really does fall on the non-compliant party. For example, building codes is another example. Yes, we have a building inspector who does his best to make sure that all buildings are built up to code. But if they fail in some respect in a code matter and there's a fire or a problem, a structural problem with the building, the city is not liable.
Okay.
So I think it would be the same thing for a business licensing.
Thank you.
Another part is businesses that comply with our requirements for business licenses aren't treated equitably. It's almost not fair that most of the businesses comply with our processes and a few do not. Other jurisdictions also lose their revenue that they're entitled to. Again, kind of going back to if they're not remitting those sales taxes, we and our local taxing jurisdiction partners aren't receiving those monies, and that includes property taxes along with the school district. Staff undertook analysis of our business license process to determine the best way to address and identify internal processes. So we've made some changes internally that we feel has helped expedite the business license process and allowed us to handle business licenses in a fair and efficient manner. We engaged in, and we propose to continue to engage in, a business process that's friendly to make sure that we are a welcoming community to new businesses and are kind of helping them along the way in their business journey. I'm going to kind of flip over to what our business process looks like.
Kim?
Yes.
Okay, what if you've got a friend of a friend that does painting, and he comes in and paints the kitchen? he should have a business license, right? I mean, how much,
Yeah, I was about to say, if there's monetary,
if there's money exchanging hands, then there's,
Yes.
yes. If there's money exchanging hands, yes, that's considered a business transaction.
I have a question then.
Yes.
All the rental properties we have, so that the owners of all these rental properties have to have a business license with us? Because money's exchanging hands. It's a business.
No, they do not.
Because.
The code excludes them.
But I don't understand, because it's a business.
I'm going to defer to you, Ms. Shirley. Okay.
Speak into the mic.
At one time, we tried to make that they had to have licenses,
Correct?
and it was, I won't go into all the detail right here, but it was shot down at that point
By us or by a court, or,
by the council.
that's interesting. She said the council.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Is
Yeah.
a
That's
lot of
been,
money.
and that's been a very long time, but
I think that's something we
We-
should look into.
We'll take a look at that.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a ton of money.
I remember that time, and the landlords come out in droves.
The one thing that we have done, which is not related to revenue, but the council did approve a few months ago, us getting into a landlord registration process, and that's really just so that we have information about them if we ever need them. It's not about money exchanging hands. We'll take a look at that.
On that,
It's a business.
Yeah, I agree. So let us see. You know, as Kim has mentioned, there are certain businesses which are exempt according to statute, and I'm not sure where landlords fall into that, so we'll take a look at it.
and I'd like to know what other communities do with that issue with landlords as well. Specifically, I guess, in Missouri.
Do you guys have any more questions? No?
Not at this
Okay.
time.
There is a copy of kind of a larger flow chart at your desks, or I'm going to kind of walk through the flow chart right now. I'm going to first start on existing and renewal. So every year, we send out notifications when business licenses are up for renewal. Those letters, after currently 90 days, we issue a late notice letter. And then that is followed up by a phone call from the finance department staff. If we still have not heard from that business, they haven't attempted to contact us, we haven't received any paperwork from them, or the paperwork that we have received is incomplete. If necessary, we have a single site visit, or if necessary, 2 site visits by an officer. It's actually Officer Hostica, and he will come and visit with a business just to remind them, hey, we still have not received all of your information. Can you please get that in? In the case of a new business, sometimes we are made aware of businesses just like you guys are. We drive by and, hey, look at that. Look what moved in. Or they come in to City Hall to apply for a business license. So there's a couple of different ways that we're made aware of new businesses. Should they come to the front counter, we give them a welcome letter that kind of outlines our process. If we drive by and find a new friend, we mail them the same information. That way they're aware of, hey, welcome to town. We're excited that you have located here in North Kansas City. And by the way, you are required to have a business license, and here's what you need to do in order to achieve one. If we have not, so that kind of starts the clock. We internally track that, and if we have not received any of that paperwork after 30 days, same thing, we're giving them a phone call. If we still have not received everything that we need or have not heard anything, then Officer Hostica will make a site visit. So that's kind of internally our processes. After we have reached a point where we have exhausted all of our processes, then it's handed over to the municipal court process.
I have 2 questions.
Yes,
One, does he go in uniform?
he does go in uniform.
And two, do you do any sort of yearly, annual audit where you go around the whole city to make sure or how do you validate that we have everybody?
To be honest, it's a little bit of an ad hoc system. We are made aware, so we have some access to the county and state resources. We also, this is a small town, we usually hear about businesses, or we physically drive by them, or if they come in for a building permit, we'll cross-check to make sure that they have a business license as part of their process of pulling other permits. And the water services, oftentimes when they yes, the utility billing. So
Utilities, yes.
yes, so we have a couple of different ways. That's not to say that one or two doesn't get past us, but we catch the vast majority through those mechanisms.
Do we know how many are in arrears at this time, at this moment?
How many are what?
How many are in arrears or not paying the business tax? I mean, if we had to put our finger on it tonight, could we say that there was
It would be 67.
67? That might be in the document. So.
I do happen to know that number off the top of my head.
We actually update that on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And Kim, just a comment, my future daughter-in-law has just opened a business here, and your welcome packet, they really enjoyed the process, and they thought it was really easy to work with the city, and then to work with the chief on, because she's doing massage things, to get that going too. So the welcome packet is actually very welcoming.
We appreciate the feedback. So if the business is still not compliant, we've kind of exhausted all the tools in our toolkit, we will issue what's called a general ordinance summons. And what that is that they have violated an ordinance or code. And we call them GOS tickets. So you'll see them on here as GOS, but I kind of wanted to explain what that was. And they are also given a court date. That court date can be anywhere from 30 days to 45 days, depending on how much other items are on the docket and when our court dates physically are scheduled. And I'm going to kind of walk through this one at a time. So a business can hire an attorney and discuss their options with the city prosecutor in advance of the court date. They put together what's actually called a probation contract. And what that is it outlines, here's the processes that you need to take, and here's an acceptable timeline to take those in. If that contract is not met, meaning you did not come into compliance the way you said, within that time period, it is considered a breach, and a probation violation hearing is issued. And during that time, the business is able to come in and either renegotiate that contract, saying, I'm very sorry, you know, I need to renegotiate that. Can I get more time? Here's the new steps and here's the new timeline. If they fail to appear at that particular hearing, the prosecutor can ask the judge to issue a warrant. And now I'll kind of hop over. So a business does not have to hire a lawyer. They can come directly to court. They show up at their court date and they discuss with the judge. Either they have taken the steps to come into compliance, and that's something that the finance department preps with the municipal court that day to say, yes, they have met these steps, they have achieved that, great, we're going to dismiss it, and off we go. Or they can request a 30-day timeline. They can say, I need more time, judge, please schedule another, can I get another court date, and I'm going to come into compliance at that time. If they do not comply within that time, they can request another extension, but if they do not show up to court during that second timeline, then the judge will actually issue a summons court date. If they do not come to that summons court date, then the judge will issue a warrant. They could completely not show up to court at all, no communication, not talking to municipal court, not talking to the prosecutor, doesn't show up to that day of court. The judge will then issue a summons court date. It's kind of a, hey, did we forget about something? Again, if they fail to appear that time, we will issue a warrant. Do you guys have any? Yes.
Question. So on these dates, the 60 days and things of that nature, I'm assuming that that's been run by our legal department. Mm-hmm. You know, because if a business has been advised, and if it's within 30 to 60 days, I mean, if you want to do business here, we'd love to have them, but pay your business license. I mean, you know, I know we've talked about our codes and not dragging them out, And, you know, I think this is a similar issue, but we have to look at legality too, I guess. So that's my
Correct.
question. As far as these dates from the 90 to 60, is this legal? I mean, is that, can we do it less? Can we do it more? Or is it,
Well, the less is going to be something I'm going to chat with you about in a minute here.
oh, okay. Stay tuned then. Okay.
Yes, but oftentimes businesses, there are kind of wrinkles along the way. Really the biggest thing is communication. As long as we're in communication with either ourselves and the business, or the business is in communication with a couple of the other, they need to make sure that they can issue a no tax due from the county and the state. Sometimes there can be hiccups along those ways, but those agencies are more than happy to come up with some kind of abatement program so that they can get just like with us, some form of a repayment contract that say, hey, you fell behind on this. We're going to work out a payment plan, and you're going to become compliant in 6 months. We're going to issue a no tax due letter for you. Some of the challenges, when the breakdown in communication happens, the state will rescind that letter and we'll get notification. That makes their business license invalid, which was once valid. Does that make sense? The biggest challenge sometimes is if they're working with us and we're talking with them, we are happy to walk through them.
Do we have chronic offenders?
Yes, we do.
And the reason behind that would be a myriad of reasons, I suppose, but what's the main reason that they're chronic?
A lot of them are not paying the county sales tax. They're several years behind on their county property tax. A lot of times it's that collection and remission of sales tax, meaning that they are collecting those sales tax at the point of sale and they are not remitting those to the state. They are behind. So some of the things we can work with them on, but if the state or the county has said no, we can no longer issue them a no tax due letter. That really stops the conversation on can we help.
And what's the penalty? What's the ultimate penalty for the business? How does that hurt? What is their?
It depends on what agency that they're non-compliant with. I'll be 100% honest. The state of Missouri, they have such an incredible log when you look at it at a state level that unless a very large amount of sales tax is due, they will not come in and force a business to become compliant. I'm just being honest.
And in fact, if I might, one thing that the state asks localities to do is to not issue a business license if a business has not received a no tax due letter from the state. In other words, they ask us to help them.
So does that
with their
effectively put
enforcement
them?
because of, as Kim says, they have a large backlog.
Does that
It's hard to-
effectively put them out of business then?
We'll talk about that. We don't actually have a procedure right now for locking the doors of a business,
That was
but,
gonna be-
Well, that's where
but
that's our
that
problem.
we'll talk about the court process and, yeah.
That's the problem.
Gotta have some teeth.
Yeah, where's the close?
So we do have a couple of things that after discussing with the city prosecutor and the judge and really looking at the way that our ordinance, the language within our ordinance reads, we do have a couple of areas that we think we can make some improvements to hopefully bring businesses into compliance. One of them is to amend section 5.04.02A. We propose amending, right now, if you were to get a GOS ticket, it is a $50 fee. Our recommendation is to move that into the penalty provisions that are provided in section 1.16010, which is an attachment on your memo. This would create consistency. So if you were to get a code violation, this is that penalty schedule that those follow. So what it does is it creates consistency on code violations, whether it be business or property maintenance. And it also, one of the big things that it does is it allows for continuing of penalties for out of compliance, which is something we don't have in our ordinance right now. Right now, you can come in and pay that $50 fee, and you've met the requirements of that GOS ticket. you don't have to there's nothing in our code that compels you to have to obtain that business license. So what happens is that cycle begins again. We'll have to issue you another GOS ticket. This amendment would fix that. This proposed amendment would fix that, meaning that just because you paid the fee doesn't mean you cured the disease. You still have to get a business license, even if you pay the fee, because now we're getting into continuing violations. Another recommendation is to amend section 5.04210. And now we're getting into, Councilman Clevenger, some of what you're saying is, what do those dates look like? So we recommend amending the delinquent schedule, which right now is at 90 days, and to bring that up to 60 days. This would allow, currently you have 4 months you can operate your business in non-compliance before any of the more penalty mechanisms kick in. Which actually puts you wouldn't actually physically touch municipal court to the July or August docket, meaning that you have gone from January, more than half the year has actually elapsed before a penalty phase kicks in. We're requesting that this timeline be reduced to 3 months, meaning 60 days plus 30 days after the police department site visit. And really the goal of this is to get businesses into compliance during the calendar year. And the reason being is if you get a couple of 30-day extensions, it could be September, October, November before you come into compliance, and the cycle is just about to begin again for you. Whereas if we can get them compliant further up in the calendar year, it gives them a little bit of space before the cycle begins again. One of our thoughts is to remove section 5.04.24. This is something that after we met with the city prosecutor and the judge, they determined that they couldn't successfully prosecute this. The way it reads, the prosecutor was very hesitant that he'd actually prosecute her, and the judge was very reluctant to uphold this. So for us, we should just remove it. If we can't use it, let's clean up our code and let's just get rid of that particular amendment. We do believe that these changes will help. Again, we do not have a mechanism with our code to say after X amount of time we're barring the door. We don't have those mechanisms within our code but this right here would kind of put a few more penalties into the judge's toolbox to maybe further compliance. Again, for us, it's not a penalty phase that we're after. We want compliance, and we want to work with businesses to bring them into compliance. But we are having a little bit of challenge on a very, very small percentage of our businesses that have been out of compliance, and some of them have been out of compliance for several years. We think that this is a good way to move forward, to be able to treat all of our businesses equitably. The businesses that are following the rules, doing what they're supposed to do day in and day out, as well as those businesses that have been non-compliant for quite some time. We're seeking direction from you on these proposed code amendments, and if directed, we will bring these forward within a future council meeting. Do you guys have any questions about our business license? Yes.
As far as you said, we don't have anything in our codes to ultimately bar us from closing a business's doors if they don't get a license.
Correct.
Is that something that you are going to investigate as to possibly put in the code, or?
Would that be something that the city council would be interested in?
I mean, I know we want to work with our businesses and want to try to get them in compliance, but if you have a chronic offender that just doesn't cooperate.
Yes, I'd like to know what other communities do on that topic.
Yeah.
And what percentage of communities do that, and
Because if there are 67 who are
Yeah.
chronically
Are most of those
non-compliant.
67, or a number of them out of town, headquartered, or are they mostly here right in North Kansas City?
The vast majority are here in North Kansas City.
See, that's not good at all. That's not good. I can understand if you got one in New York or something, but you got them here. We need to do something with that.
How many of those 67 are chronically?
I could give you a quick breakdown. Right now, 11 of the businesses are either 2, 3, or 4 years non-compliant.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
We have 21 businesses right now that we're working with that are brand new. They're brand new to North Kansas City, and we're working with them to obtain their business license. But 34 of them are non-compliant from, there are the renewing. So they have been here. This is not their first year in business. They're having challenges on that second year.
You say 21 new. Are those ones that have come to us asking for a license or ones you've determined?
It's a mix. I'll be honest, it's a mix. Some of them are, just like I said, hey, look, there's a new business. Some of them are, they have done some internal work, so they have pulled a building permit, and were made aware of through that. Some of them did come to the front counter, and they're new businesses, so they're having, what's a federal FIN number? What is that? Some of them, I hate to say, is just making a new business aware of all the different agencies that they need to register with. But some of them are having challenges with no tax due letters. That's a new concept to them, and they're having their bumps along the way.
But we actually have no way of shutting them down if they don't do it.
Correct.
So in other words, we don't have any teeth to.
What are those?
Go ahead. Yep.
So the recurring fee, making that so that we could, as the code reads right now, we could actually, and we would not do this, but you could actually continuously write GOSs for every day that they're out of compliance. That would be new. So moving that fee schedule from currently $50 to the more municipal code violation would allow for multiple GOSs to be written as a continuing penalty part.
Right now, the judge can go as high as $500 under the general penalty provision. So our hope is that by making the changes we're talking about, we could continue to bring somebody to court and make them pay a higher penalty monetarily than they are now for noncompliance and achieve compliance that way. So we'll certainly, if at your direction, take a look at what other cities do in terms of actually locking a business's doors if it gets to that point. But I guess our hope was that this would add some teeth to the current procedure.
Of the 11 that are 2, 3, and 4 years behind, what's the attitude behind those? Is it this, we don't care, we don't follow your rules, or you're not getting any response at all?
Some of them were not getting any response.
Okay.
Some of them have issues with other agencies. So some of them do have, can't get that no tax due letter from another agency, or it has been rescinded. So some of them are not at our level, that the challenge is not within our span of control. A few of them, though, we have had multiple attempts to contact with zero reply.
Okay.
I don't think that I caught, how much does a business license cost?
So a business
Is it
license.
a percentage of the revenue? It used to be like a minimum of $35 or something like that.
So if you have gross receipts for, say you take in $50,000 worth of revenue, your business license would be $50. If your gross receipts were $100,000, then your business license fee would be $75. If it was $500,000, your business license would be $275. For $1 million, it's $525. And then for $2 million, it's a little over $1,000. It's $1,025.
Do we have a way to check on that, their income? I mean, as far as, they can say, well, I've only brought in so much money, so I only pay the minimum, as.
It's in the code that we could ask for their tax records.
Oh.
Currently, that's not something we do. We take their word for it. I mean, really, we have no staff to do that. And it also allows us to audit a business if we wanted to. Again, there's no one to do it. Okay.
Somebody can't pay $50, they got a problem.
Well, as I hear you say, Kim, it's not just the $50. They have other problems, like with state, or they're
Often-
not paying the $50 because they're not compliant with a whole lot of other levels. It's not just coming in and paying $50 to open your business.
Correct. We have businesses that have paid the local licensing fee but can't get that no tax due.
It's a no tax.
So I have to say, there is a myriad of bumps along the way that I can't say that all of them are because of this one agency issue. It really is all across the board, where we'll have agencies that, we'll have businesses that have a stumbling block at the state level or at the county level, or they have not paid our business licensing fee. It's kind of all over.
Well, do they have to be in compliance, say, with the county and state to get our license?
Yes.
Oh, that's a sticking point. I wonder why owing them money would keep them from paying us.
Well, and a lot of that kind of goes back to, if they haven't paid their property taxes, well, then we have not received
Right,
those funds
right,
either.
yeah.
Or if they haven't paid those sales tax dollars, we have not received those funds as well. So there is, a case there for why we require those.
So if I came in as a new business and I came here to get my license, I have to have receipts from the other taxing entities?
You have to have no tax due letters, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
You gotta do that to buy a tag.
Well, I know.
I mean, you gotta make sure they wanna know that you paid your taxes. I mean, well,
I didn't know you had to prove it by a business license, so.
well, same distance.
Yeah, yeah.
As well as, like I say, we look at those. Do you have enough liability insurance? Do you have all of your state licenses? Do you have your workman's comp? Can you conduct business safely?
Are the courts doing their part, you think? Because I know in the code section, they keep giving extensions after extensions, that some of them have gone into years.
So that was some of the things that we talked about when we met with the prosecutor and judge. And we've developed a process internally to help them better understand the length of this case and maybe how long it's been going on. So that's something that we have internally put in place to make sure that when they come to court, the judge and the prosecutor have the latest and updated information to make sure that they can make whatever decision that they're going to make, it's a well-informed decision.
Well, I'm in favor of tightening them up, you know.
Well, I think we need to give them every chance to catch up, but, there's some of those chronic ones that will never catch up, and so we have to have some way to be able to get in there and say, okay, we've had it, this is enough. And I think if other businesses realize that this is gonna happen, then they may say, whoa, well, they're serious, so.
And those should be crafted to make it a less of a burden on you people, the staff. It could be crafted so that the burden is on them to do, because you can't hire 5 or 6 people. It would be nice if you could be on their neck all the time. But if it puts an extra burden on you people to do it, then you have to balance out whether it's going to be financially worthy to bother with it. So write it so that it's less work for you than more work on them.
And for those who are compliant, I think that would be really great to see the 67 who are not, or the 11 who are chronic. I mean, they're doing everything they're supposed to do, and I'm sure, small town, they're aware that there's at least 11 people who for years haven't done anything, and I think that would discourage new businesses from coming into town too. I mean, why would we have to go through all the hoops when there's people who don't have to go through all the hoops? There has to be something after, like Bryant was saying, the warrant and stuff. It's like it's incomplete here.
Do you have any other questions for us?
Send the mayor down the stick.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is we will go ahead and bring if it's okay, we'll bring the changes that we've recommended in the memo to you for your formal consideration, and we'll look into the couple of questions that you've asked, which have to do with landlords and they're paying the business license tax, and then whether or not what other cities are doing in terms of ultimately if they can't achieve compliance, closing a business down until it does comply. So we'll take a look at both those questions and we'll come back to you with some more information in the future.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
To adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I guess we're done.
That's desperate.